All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Free. I'm Ryan, and I'm the pastor and executive director here at Free Spiritual Community, and we are glad you're with us on this holiday Saturday night. So first, I want to say welcome to all you online people or online community, whatever state you're in, whatever sober living house you're in, or wherever you are in the world, welcome here. We're glad you're part of this community. And for those of you, for everyone actually online too, if you need the reminder, if you're new with us, this is a community for addicts, loved ones of addicts, and spiritual refugees. And what we do here is break the silence of addiction, and we create space for healing, recovery, and spiritual connection. And there is one thing we do not do. And if you don't know it, you're going to learn it in just a minute because y'all are going to shout it out on the count of three, all four words. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, we don't do shame here. Shame is deadly. All right, y'all. If, usually Noel gives announcements, so I'm trying to hold myself together here. If you're new, there are welcome bags just outside this door on the table. There is fresh roasted wagon coffee in there, roasted from the one and only Tammy Canaday and other women who go in that room and roast coffee. So there's fresh roasted coffee, some information about who we are. I think there's some swag in there. So grab you a welcome bag if it's your first time here at Free. And Tam, do you want to come up and say a word about this next one? I said, I don't know what to say about AccuDetox, but she's done it before. So she's going to say a word about AccuDetox.
I got a 2-minute warning, so I have my notes. So Holly will be joining us next Saturday, and we're doing AccuDetox. It's acupuncture in your ear. So if you guys noticed, what was that, a month ago or so at Regeneration Day? Some of you guys joined. Kira was there. We did it. You did it too, little girl. I know. So it's a cool. She brings her little sound bowls. It's a sound bath. She does acupuncture. It's $15, and she's donating a portion of it back to Free. So that'll be at 2:30 to 4, and I guess you can
just pay when you get here, right?
You could prepay at the Venmo handle if you want to. So that's at Free-1, and it's $15. So if you haven't done acupuncture, it was my first time this summer, and it was awesome.
Did you like it?
Well, so the like pressure points of the things that you need to like work on, they kind of like they zing in your ear, and they tell you like what you might need to work on in your body physically. Some points I didn't feel at all, so I'm like, okay, maybe we're good there for a day or two. But it was really telling and really neat, so I loved the experience. Yeah.
I could stick some needles in your ears tonight.
No, thank
you. See how it feels? No? We'll do it next week. All right, thank you, Tammy. We'll see you in just a moment. Hey, I want to let you all know what else is happening on the 17th. So the week after next week, September 17th, we have a day of service in community. Recovery Elevator's coming out. How many of y'all know Recovery Elevator, the big podcast? Some of y'all have listened to it. They're coming out. They gave a very generous donation to Free, and they want to do a little upgrade in our front landscaping and create a welcoming and inviting outdoor space for us. So it's going to be fun. There's going to be projects here all day from 2 to 5. So if you want to come and get your volunteerism on, come out and join us. You can bring the kids for this. We'll have all kinds of things to do inside and outside. So come hang out. That's in 2 Saturdays from tonight, September 17th. All right. Also, the tech team wants me to make an announcement and let y'all know they're looking for more volunteers. The tech team hangs out in the back. They run everything that you see on the screen, everything online. So I know it's a lot of stuff that I know nothing about going on back there, but they are looking for help. So if you're like a techie person and you want to volunteer with the tech team, talk to Bobby G in the back. Bobby G, raise your hands in the air. Yeah, there's Bobby G. Thank you all for everything you do. Hey, a special announcement. In the second row, could y'all stand up? Jen and Christy. We have Jen and Christy who tune it. Yes, let's give a round of applause for Jen. Come on, stand up. You don't even have to come up. Just wave. They're from North Carolina. They've been tuning in for forever since we've been around. And they come out periodically from North Carolina and hang out with us. So it's good to have out-of-towners with us tonight. Yes. Welcome, y'all. Okay, I want to introduce you all to Heather Lister. Where's Heather Lister? There's Heather Lister. Come on up. Heather Lister is with Illuminate Community Recovery Services. I met with, Tammy and I met with Heather and Angelica and Brooke, who is our guest storyteller tonight, and to get family programs here at Free. And man, we were just so impressed with what they're doing, and they're going to be here soon in November. And I want you to tell us what it's about. Thank you for being here, Heather.
Thank you. So I started an agency about a year ago. It is Illuminate Community Recovery Services. It is an agency that focuses on family members of those with addiction, and then we also have some services for those with addiction. We are bringing about in November or in the fall some point a group here at Free called CRAFT, which is not arts and craft. It stands for Community Reinforcement and Family Training. And what that is it's a time for family members to come together and learn some actual hands-on skills, technique, tools, things that they can do to start to support their loved ones when they're in their early recovery. I think a lot of us know that getting sober is just the first step, or getting into your recovery is just the first step. But what does that first year actually look like? And I think for those of us in recovery, we get a pretty good roadmap to what that looks like. But a lot of times family members are kind of like, I don't know what to do. I've tried everything. I go to Al-Anon, I do all of this, but I'm still not getting any answers. So what we want to do is to be able to provide some answers, support, skills, technique, things that you can actually do and start practicing right away.
So are you going to stick around a little bit tonight after the service? If you have questions about this, and again, it's going to happen sometime this fall, November-ish, and talk to Heather. They're doing some fascinating stuff, and I think it's such a valuable resource to this community because we have so many loved ones of addicts here, and thank you so much for your work, Heather. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you.
All right. All right, y'all, if you're new with us this evening, the way we begin here at Free Spiritual Community is with celebrations. We lift up the good stuff. We don't ignore the hard stuff. We just don't start with the hard stuff. We end with the hard stuff. We call them heartaches, but we start with celebrations. Maybe it's sobriety anniversaries or the new thing in your life, the new baby you just had, or the new job, or whatever the new thing is, we want to lift it up. We believe that God celebrates with us, and something very profound happens when we celebrate together in community. And when you online people join us, get vulnerable, put it in the comments. We want to celebrate with you. If you're on YouTube or Facebook, wherever you are, we want to celebrate with you. So we're going to take 3 minutes. And just raise your hand in the air. Kira's got a mic. She'll pass the mic to you. And we don't need the dissertation on your celebration, just the short couple sentences. So take 3 minutes and let's celebrate together, shall we?
Hi, my name is Mike. I'm a calls orator. By the grace of God and the program Over is Anonymous, I have 6 months of abstinence from compulsive overeating as of September 1st. Thanks.
I learned how to do a back handspring on the ground by myself.
Thank you, Shiloh. I'm glad I could teach you how to do that.
Hi, I'm Pamela. This past week and a half or so was my son's 21st birthday, and he's just alive, so I'm happy. My birthday, and he also got his 9-month chip, so he was super excited. Yeah. So that's it.
Way to go, Sam. Thank you, Pamela.
Yeah, I'm Austin, and I got 90 days clean yesterday. So.
90 days. Way to go, dude. Proud of you, man.
My name's Alyssa. I just got my 4-month chip, and I just got a job recently. So.
All right, Alyssa. Way to go. That's the good stuff.
Hey, y'all. I'm Chris, and I have a minute and 43 seconds before I have to get back in front of that computer. I got in contact with my 5-year-old daughter yesterday for the first time in 8 months, and this is the beginning of my kids coming back into my life through the blessings of recovery and God being so good. Thank you all.
The gifts of recovery. Way to go, dude. Thank you for sharing that with us, Chris. Second row.
Hi, my name is Jennifer, and I'll have 3 years on the 7th, this Wednesday.
Way to go, Jen. That's awesome.
Hi, I'm Keo, and my son just celebrated his 10th year of sobriety, and he got his interlock out of his car. He bought a new car with cash. He's doing great. Thanks.
Oh, wow. Good news. Congratulations.
I'm Brandon, and through my relationship to my higher power, God, I finally got the courage to quit a job that I hate 2 weeks ago. So I'm celebrating that.
Celebrating a new thing. Way to go, Brandon. We get sober and we quit jobs. That's how it works. All right, y'all, we got time for one more. Bill, make it good, dude. You got 20 seconds.
Okay, so 2 days ago, my friend Big J hasn't had a pill, powder, potion, lotion that's affected his emotions in 17 months.
Way to go, Jason. Thank you for sharing that with us, Bill. We'll celebrate that. All right, Tammy Kennedy, are you going to join me back up on the stage?
Switch spots with
Yeah, we got to switch sides. Make it right. Oh, yes.
Thank you,
Tara,
Bobby.
our director of Free Kids, who's, of course, back with all the kids. She celebrated 31 years of sobriety this
31.
week. Way to go, Tara. That's a long time.
That's a big deal.
Yeah. Okay, you want to start us off with our online people?
And did they hear online tonight all the sobriety in the house? Sometimes it's broadcasted over, but we got 3 years.
4 months.
Kavita, no Frenzy, sorry, Andrew. Kavita's coming up on 6 years on Friday. There's
17 months. Yeah, it was all over the place. It was great.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
Hey, Mike in Chicago says, glad my wife is recovering still. A long road, but a positive start. There you go. We'll take that.
Good to hear that, Mike. We've been praying for you, brother. Glad you're here tonight. Thank you for sharing that with us. Jackie says, last week I celebrated 5 years clean and sober.
There you go.
Way
Keep
to
it
go,
going.
Jackie. We'll celebrate that with you.
Good job, Jackie. Hey, Julie. I got to spend the day with Julie if you guys follow us on social. Julie hung out in the cafe with us. She says, grateful for this community, helping me get through this 1-year mark of losing Jessica. Love you all. Yeah, yesterday was the anniversary of her losing Jessica. So we got to love on her and hang out with her and drink some pumpkin lattes. And we had all sorts of fun.
That's what community's about.
Yeah.
Glad you're here, Julie. Christine says, Gerald got 5 years sober on the 2nd.
Gerald.
Hey, congratulations,
Nice.
Gerald, on 5 years. Thank you for sharing that with us, Christine. Miss you all tonight, but glad you're online. Oh, we lost the red dot, so that was it.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Tammy. All right, y'all, we are We are starting a new series tonight. This one is called Recovery Myths Busted, and recovery myth number 1 is, it's their problem, not mine. Yeah, y'all did know September's Recovery Month, right? September is Recovery Month. So myth number 1, it's their problem, not mine, or not ours. 2 Mondays ago, it was a beautiful evening out. It was like the perfect weather. Kids were playing outside. Our kids were outside. We were outside playing. One of our kids' neighborhood friends came over, and his name is Nick. And see, Nick has a one-wheel. And when Nick comes over, he lets me ride his one wheel. So I really like it when Nick comes over to play. So as the sun was starting to go down, my 2 little boys, Breck and Bricks, they said, Pops, can we go up to the trail and get on the bench and watch the sunset? Because if you just go up our street a little bit and get on the trail and go down a little bit, there's a bench to watch like the sunset over the mountains. It's beautiful. So I said, boys, that's a great idea. Nick, can I ride your one wheel up to the trail? He said, sure, go for it. So I get on the one wheel. If you don't know what a one wheel is like an electric scooter. It's got a wheel in the middle and you balance on the thing and you shift your weight and you can make it go faster and faster. So I'm on the one wheel, the boys are on the scooters, and we ride up to the trail. We find our bench. We watch the sunset. It was beautiful. And then we start to make our way back home. Now, on the way back home, I'm getting more and more comfortable on the one wheel, and I'm pushing some limits on it. I'm seeing how fast I can get it to go, and you can make this thing go pretty fast. So on the way home, there's a slight hill that goes back down to our house, and I stopped at the top of the hill, and I looked back at my boys. I said, Breck, watch this. I was going to show them how fast I could go. So I start going faster, 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 more, because that's my problem. And I wanted to go even faster, so I put a little bit more weight in the front of it. And when I did, the nose of the one wheel, it just dug into the pavement. And what happens when that happens is that thing comes to an abrupt stop. And the problem is when that came to an abrupt stop, Ryan did not come to an abrupt stop. So I go flying off the front of the one wheel, and I'm sliding across the pavement, and my hands are dragging across the pavement. And I came to, and I stood up, and I just look, and there's like blood everywhere. There's flesh wounds on my hands. There's like flesh hanging off. I look down at my pants, and there's blood on my pants, and I realized I had quite the road rash on the side of my leg, and my elbow was throbbing. I thought I broke my elbow. I couldn't move it. And so I stood up, and I said, boys, we have to get home like now. And so we get home, and I walk in the door, and my wife Tammy was there, and my 9-year-old daughter Shiloh was there. And here's what you need to know about Shiloh. She's our feisty one. She's our lively one. We call her our hot pepper. And in that moment when I walked in, she grabbed my hands, and she's seeing all this blood, and she was like filled with care and concern. And she's looking at my hands, and she says, Mom, we have to go to the store now and get Poppy some bandages and some medicine. So they go to the store, and then they get back, and little 9-year-old Shiloh is standing with me at the kitchen sink, literally washing the blood off of my hands and putting ointment on my wounds and then bandaging my wounds. And I have to tell you, I hate physical pain. I mean, I hate all pain, but man, physical pain, it makes it feel like it's going to be that way forever. But I have to tell you, in the midst of this kind of excruciating physical pain for Ryan, it was this beautiful moment of seeing my daughter filled with such compassion. And do you know what she didn't say to me? She didn't say to me, well, Poppy, it's your problem, not mine. And she could have, right? You're the one who got cocky on the one wheel. You're the one who was arrogant. You're the one who was saying faster, 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 more, more, more. You deal with it, your problem. She didn't say that. She was simply filled with compassion. Now, what does this have to do with a recovery community? What does this have to do with a recovery myth? You see, if compassion is our starting place, then we cannot say things like, it's their problem, not mine. In fact, raise your hand if you love someone who's battling addiction. Yeah, me too. Me too. Sometimes we just need a visual to remind us that it's not just their problem. It's a we thing. It's ours. We're all in this together. So, there's a philosopher and theologian. His name is John Philip Newell, and he wrote a great book, a tremendous book. I highly recommend it. It's called The Rebirthing of God. And it's a bit of a dense read, so if you read it, go slowly. But in this book, he describes what's called the 3 pathways of compassion. And he actually borrows this from a Buddhist thinker. And the way he describes it in his book is really simple, and I like simple. And he described these very simply, and I want to share them with you. He says there's 3 pathways of compassion, and the first one is to simply see. To see the relationship. That compassion is about knowing the relationship between you and me. And it's a bit like a compass. Think about a compass, C-O-M-P-A-S-S, kind of like compassion. Not the compass that you took camping last week and it told you which direction you were going, but y'all remember in like the 5th and 6th grade when you used that metal object with the 2 points on the end, and you could stick a golf pencil in it and draw the perfect circle? I know you engineers are like, oh yeah, I remember this. Yeah, you could draw the perfect circle. And the compass, it determines the distance between 2 points. Compassion determines the distance between you and I. And it also asks this question, do you see how profoundly interconnected our lives are? Do you see the relationship in the interconnectedness? Now, if seeing is the first pathway, he says that to feel is the second. And again, feeling, it asks some very interesting questions. When another person suffers, do you feel their suffering? Do you feel their wounds almost like it's your own wounds? And isn't it interesting how you can turn on the news, or you can be scrolling through social and you can see an event, you can encounter an event that's happening on the other side of the world, some tragic event that involves suffering. And for some of you, you can feel it. Like something inside of you breaks. It might even move you to tears. It causes your heart to ache because our lives are profoundly interconnected. Do you feel it as your own? And sometimes, is it true? We shut down this feeling of compassion. We shut it down because I think most of us intuitively know if we see it and we feel it, then we have to actually do something about it. And that's just too big. It's too hard. I don't know where to start. So we just shut down that feeling of compassion. We stuff that feeling deep inside, which leads to the next one, which is if you feel, then you get to act on that. It's putting the seeing and feeling into action and actually doing something about it. Now, one of the greatest parables that Jesus told, one of the most well-known parables told, is in Luke's Gospel, chapter 10, and it's commonly referred to as the parable of the Good Samaritan. And some of you all know this story, but if you're a bit fuzzy on it, I'll recap it for you. Jesus was talking to a first century Jewish lawyer, a very important point in the story, first century Jewish lawyer. And he launches into this story and he says, there was a man who was robbed and beaten and left on the side of the road. And 3 people encountered this man. The first one was a religious leader, and he sees the man suffering, but he crosses over to the other side of the road and he just keeps going because he has some religious duties to attend. And the second one is like a religious leader assistant, and the same thing. He sees this man on the side of the road and he crosses over to the other side and he just keeps on trucking. It wasn't until the third person that someone stopped. And what is so profound in this story is the third person was what? Who? A Samaritan. And you say, well, Ryan, why is that important? Because in the first century Jewish world, the world of Jesus, Samaritans were a hated group of people. They were considered impure, unclean. You would never touch a Samaritan. You'd never be found in the same proximity as a Samaritan. And yet, y'all check it out. This man stops. This Samaritan stops. But when he saw him sing, he was moved with compassion, feeling. The Samaritan went to him and bandaged his wounds, acting. Interesting, isn't it? I mean, the religious leader and the other religious leader, they see the suffering. Dang, they may have even been a bit moved. They might have even felt it, but they shut that feeling down and they just keep on going, not taking responsibility of any kind for this man's brokenness. But it was the hated, untouchable Samaritan who stops and acts. In fact, if you read the story, the text tells us that he put ointment on his wounds. He bandaged his wounds. Then he takes this man and puts him on his own donkey and brings him to a hotel. And when they get to the hotel, he says, look, however long this man is here, take care of him. And don't worry about the bill. I'm going to cover all expenses. So just know you're going to be taken care of. Now, did this man, did he deserve it? I mean, did he deserve such compassion? I mean, who knows? Maybe this man was like a town drunk. Maybe he was causing chaos in the town and people were getting tired of it, and that's why he got robbed and beaten up. But do you see how the Samaritan does not begin with categories of deserving? He begins with categories of compassion. And this is absolutely fascinating because y'all know the New Testament is written in Greek. Do you know what the Greek word for compassion is? Let's throw it on the screen. Yeah, go ahead, try to say that one. Splagnizomai. Say that with me, splagnizomai. Splagnizomai. That's the Greek word for compassion, and it's a verb describing the movement of the internal organs, the guts and the bowels. Fascinating, isn't it? That means compassion isn't just a feeling. It's when your innards are moved to such an extent that it moves you into a new direction, splagnizomai. Now, why talk about compassion? Because how many people around you are dying, literally dying to be seen? How many people around you are dying to have someone come and feel with them? Like they have wounds that can only be healed through human connection. You know, and the truth is, y'all, sometimes you can't see the wounds because culturally we've done a good job at pretending. We do a good job at masking up and hoping no one sees us. So sometimes you can't see the wounds, but do be reminded, everyone you encounter has a story. Or as the old saying goes, everyone you encounter, they may be facing a battle that you know nothing about. Or as my wife reminded me not too long ago, he might be carrying cake. Some of y'all remember this story. It was about a year ago. It was a Saturday afternoon, and we get into the car. We're heading to the old Free location before we moved into this location. And I'm driving. She's in the front seat. Kids are in the back. And to get to the old Free location, we'd go down a few roads from our house and jump on C-470, then get off the Quebec exit, and then take Quebec all the way to Arapahoe, then turn right out of Arapahoe, and then we were there. Now, for those of you that aren't local, you should know, Quebec is just like a bunch of little mountains, just a bunch of hills. Think about the base of the Rocky Mountains. It's true, isn't it? That's what Quebec is. So we're driving down Quebec. We're on one of these large hills coming down. There are cars beside me in the left lane, and there's a car in front of me. Now, this car in front of me, he's putting on his brakes going down this hill. And he's not just tapping them, he's going slower and slower and slower. And I want to do faster, faster, faster. Ryan's getting a little angry. Now, apparently, at the bottom of the hill, he wants to turn right. So what does he do? He comes to a complete stop at the bottom. No stop sign, no stoplights, just stops. And then he slowly turns right. And Ryan, by this time, had had enough. So I had a bit of an outburst. I said, oh my goodness, what is wrong with this guy? Why can't he just drive like a normal human being and turn like a normal human being? To which Tammy responds, whoa, 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 whoa. Ryan, calm down. He might be carrying cake. To which I respond in my mind, who in the world thinks about cake in a dire situation like this? It makes no sense. Unless you know Tammy's backstory. Yeah, see, 10 years ago, she had a little company where she would make and bake and decorate these most beautiful cakes. And then she would very carefully place these cakes in the back of her car, and she would deliver them to the wedding or to the gathering or to the party, whatever it was. And I remember 10 years ago, she would often tell me about how slow she had to travel while traveling with these cakes, especially when she was taking corners. That if she turned too fast, the whole thing would come toppling down and it would be a huge, gigantic mess. He might be carrying cake. Now, the truth is, y'all, life happens. Is it true? And no, it does not happen to you. Life just happens, and you get to choose how you are going to respond. Probably before the weekend is over, you are going to get a phone call, or you're going to get a text message, or you're going to be in the King Soopers parking lot. You're going to be in a conversation with a stranger, and they are going to say something or do something, and it's going to get under your skin, and the temptation is going to be to have an outburst to let them know how it is, how you feel. And be reminded, you don't always know what they're carrying. You don't know the phone call they got right before that. You don't know the conversation they had with their employer, the bad news they just received. They might be carrying cake. Recovery teaches us what? To pause. We can, yeah, you don't know what they're carrying. It's okay to pause. You see, when you remember your own story, the compassion that was given to you, then you will more naturally extend that compassion to others. And y'all do know, right, that the words, the teachings, the ministry, the actions of Jesus, they always point to who God is. So when you read these stories in the gospel, it's like Jesus is always pointing to who God is. Let me just read this 2-verse story to you and see if you find yourself in it. It's about Jesus when he encounters a man with a skin disease, another untouchable in the first century Greco-Roman world. Check it out. A man with leprosy came to him and begged him on his knees, so Jesus sees him. If you are willing, you can make me clean. Jesus was filled with splagnizomai, compassion. He feels the suffering. Jesus, reached out his hand and touched the man. Acts. God reaching out God's hand. How many of you, without even reading the rest of the story, you're like, oh yeah, I know exactly what this story's about. Oh yeah, that's not just a first century story from the Bible. That's like my story. This is our story. I mean, how many of you in the depths of your addiction, you begged God, or in the depths of watching your loved one battle addiction, you begged God, God, help us. God, save us. God, make me clean. Make me sober, God. And is it true? Some of you expected to encounter a God who was a little bit disgusted with you, a God who couldn't wait to punish you because you deserved it, a God who was filled with a little bit of shame when it came to you. And instead, you encountered a God of splagnizomai, a God who was filled with compassion. And this God was with you, And by the way, Jesus acted in compassion not because this man begged him, but because it's who he is. And aren't you glad God's compassion towards you had nothing to do with whether or not you deserved it? Because see, God's love for you, it comes from the depths. It comes from the innards, the guts, the bowels. It's deep within. Now, if you are lacking compassion in your life, if you are filled with things like anger and frustration, and man, why won't they just stop using? Why do they keep creating this mess? Why? All the why questions that you'll never get answers to. If you're filled with those sorts of things, I invite you to pray and ask God to begin filling you with something different, like compassion. Ask God to give you the ability to see, feel, and act differently. And no, y'all, I am not, because someone will bring this up later, I promise you, I am not recommending that you abandon your wisdom or abandon boundaries. By no means. Boundaries are important. In fact, saying no might be the most compassionate thing you can do. Not enabling their poor behavior may indeed be the most compassionate thing in that scenario. And you do realize compassion can coexist with boundaries, right? But I'm talking about a new mode of being in the world. Do you remember the hand of compassion that God extended to you? Like on Monday morning at 6 a.m., January 7, 2013, my sobriety date, when Tammy, my wife, came down those stairs and Ryan's passed out drunk on the couch again. And she came down the stairs holding another empty vodka bottle. And this time she's got tears coming down her face. And she said to me, Ryan, what are we going to do? And I'm crying, God, help me. I cannot stop drinking. I've tried everything I know to do. God, just help me. And in the midst of that gift of desperation, God's hand reaches out. And when I started going to 12-step meetings, sitting, being surrounded by people that taught me how to love myself when I didn't know how to love myself because I was filled with so much fear of being seen, so much shame of being seen. Through those people, like God reaching out, God's hand of compassion. And then when I actually started working these 12 steps, oh my goodness, talk about compassion. Man, I got to step 9 where we make amends to people that we've harmed. And I thought going into it, I thought, man, I know how this goes. I know I'm going to get what I've got coming. I know I'm going to get what I deserve. And I know how God is. And I know how people are. And y'all, I can't tell you the incredible amount of grace and love and compassion that I received, like God's hand reaching out. And when my mom said these words to me, I'll never forget sitting in the living room with her. And she said, my boy, I will always love you. Splagnitzmai. You see, God is compassionate because God is compassionate. There's no other reason. God is compassionate because God is compassionate. If you let compassion in, it can set you free. It's why we called free from the very beginning, because all the things that set us free, grace, compassion, love, forgiveness, these are the things that are so freely given by God. And thank God, none of them, my family, my 12-step comrades, none of them, my wife, none of them said, well, dude, you got yourself into this mess. Sounds like it's your problem, not mine. No. Splagnitzmai. They were people filled with compassion. So I ask you, are you becoming a person of compassion? Seeing, feeling, and acting in new ways? Are we becoming compassionate people? Deep within, from the guts, from the innards. So y'all, I want to close with a song. This song is called Unsteady. It's by ex-ambassadors, and we have some candles up here. We did this a few months ago with our series on relapse. During this song, if you want to just sit and reflect on compassion and the compassion that's been given to you, you can certainly do so. Or during the song, if you want to come up and light a candle to remember the compassion that's been given to you, and to remember someone out there, and to say a prayer for someone out there still battling addiction, well, there's some tea light candles up here and a lighter, and I invite you to come forward and light a candle. So take a moment and reflect and light a candle if you'd like. Ended sooner than I thought it was going to end. Yeah, tears are okay, by the way. If things bring tears to your eyes, it's okay. We accept tears here. We get real here. Hey, y'all, if you're new with us, you should know that every single Saturday evening, we have a guest storyteller who joins me right here in the living room. And I said it earlier, Brooke Donahue is in the house tonight. She's going to share some of her story around being the loved one of an addict. She's also part of this craft program, and so she might, I don't know if you're going to talk about that at all. You're welcome to talk about it, but she's going to talk about some of her experience around compassion and how compassion actually transforms us and how we get there. So I want you all to help me welcome my friend Brooke Donahue. Yeah, I was just telling Brooke, I watched that song last night. I mean, I planned on playing this song a couple weeks ago, and I went to YouTube it last night, and I watched it, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is like some real stuff here. So, yeah, kind of a moving video. For those of you online, you can go YouTube it. You can take a minute and YouTube it right now. Hit the pause button if you want. All right, Brooke, I'm so glad you're here tonight. As I told them earlier, when I met with Brooke and Heather and Angelica, it was just this kind of enlivening conversation that I was so excited about. And Brooke is actually the one. Can I tell them the story? Yeah. I've got to tell them the story. And I told her, I said, we're going to start this new series in September, and it's called Recovery Myths. And she right away said something like, oh, like the myth of it's their problem, not mine. And I said, oh, that would be a great one to start with. And I said, tell me more. So we met and we talked more about her story. And she just has this really incredible story. And I want you to share with us some of that story, Brooke. And first, what does it mean to you, that phrase? I mean, you're the one that said it. I don't know if you coined it, but you said it. It's their problem, not mine. And I know you grew up with addiction. It was part of your childhood. What's it mean to you?
Growing up with many people that I loved, drinking constantly, booze was a part of our culture, essentially. And so there was always somebody drunk, but you just kind of ignored it. You didn't really acknowledge it. Nobody talked about it. Yeah, the uncles were drunk or the aunts or whoever, and there was always a keg at the birthday parties. But it was normal. So when I met my ex-husband, he was a social drinker. And then he progressed into a binge drinker until he was physically dependent on alcohol. And the entire time, I was angry and I was annoyed with him. Because we just couldn't go have fun anymore. We couldn't enjoy the booze on a fun level. And at one point, he came to me and he asked me if I would stop drinking with him so that he could sober up because he felt he had a problem. And I told him, no, I can drink just fine. This is your problem, not mine. You deal with it. So he did not deal with it. He kept drinking. Because it's what we did. Then I had my brother's wife. She started drinking really heavily too. And it got to the point where during our holidays, she would go missing. And we'd be like, well, where is she? Where is she? Well, my brother had to take her to the car and put her to bed because she was just getting too drunk. So we kind of hid her.
Drunks have a way of disappearing at family gatherings and parties. Yeah, right.
They do. They do exactly right. So, we would be sipping on our martinis, and we'd be like, God, what's her problem? She can't handle her booze, and we would sit there and judge her as we were drinking our drinks. So it was always everybody else's problem. It wasn't ours. We weren't going to stop having our fun because of them. And we certainly weren't going to stop drinking to support them.
Yeah. So things got bad enough with your ex-husband. You ended up divorcing, I think, in 2013.
Yes.
I don't know if you want to say any more about that or.
Yeah, it got to the point where he was disappearing at night. I was finding bottles of booze, or I'd wake up and he'd be gone, and just a lot of crazy stuff. And I started working, and when I'd come home from work at 3:30 or 4, he would be drunk. So I eventually had to step away from the relationship because I didn't have the tools. I didn't know how to help him. And for me, not drinking in support of him was not something I was willing to do at that point because, again, it was his issue, not mine.
His problem, not mine.
Right. So I left. And about 4 or 5 years after I left, his lifestyle took him. Yeah. And then my sister-in-law passed as well. Her lifestyle took her as well.
So, and Brooke, I thought it was really profound when you told me I couldn't see it. I wasn't convinced that it was my problem until my baby started battling addiction.
Right. Yeah.
And when she says her baby, she's referring to her adult child. And so can you just tell us a little bit about, that's when you realized you had to do that hard interior work. You had to actually look in the mirror and come face to face with your own dysfunction. And so can you tell us how that work, what that work looked like, and how it actually led you towards compassion?
Sure, sure. My son started using when he was 11, and I was checked out. So when his father passed, he came to live with me. And at that point, I had remarried, or I hadn't remarried yet, but I was involved with a man who was in recovery. And when I got involved with this man, I started to learn about alcoholism because, see, prior to this, I didn't even know what alcoholism was. I mean, this person was sensitive. They drank too much, right? We just kind of brushed it away and under the rug. We didn't look at it closely. So when my son came to live with us, when his father passed, he kept ending up in hospitals and jails. And my boyfriend at the time, who's now my husband, said, you know, I think he has a problem. And I was like, no, he doesn't. It's a phase. We all go through it. But this, this wasn't a phase. You know, my husband said, when you continue to wake up in hospitals and in jails, this isn't a phase, Brooke. And I was angry at him. I was like, you don't know us. You don't know where we've come from. You don't know. Just sit back, okay, and let me handle this. Because I've done so well in the past.
Your track record is great, right, up to this point.
Right. So in any case, my son went to jail for a month. He missed Christmas. And it was so embarrassing, you know, because we had the whole family over. And somebody asked where he was. And I was like, oh, he's in a treatment center. And I was completely lying because I was so ashamed of it. In any case, it really opened my eyes because this was not somebody I could divorce. It was not somebody I could walk away from. It wasn't somebody I could block. He was my child. There was this mother-son bond there. And not only that, he was a minor. So kicking him out was not even an option. I tried. The judge told me I couldn't do it. So as a matter of fact, I tried to leave him in juvie one time, and they said they would get me for child abandonment. So I had to go pick him up. In any case, he entered treatment when he was 17. And in that treatment center, they required the parents to go to a parent support group. And I reluctantly went because, again, this was his problem. This was not mine. Why do I have to go to a support group? He needs to just get his stuff together, because if he would just drink properly and moderately, or just not drink at all, we would all be fine.
Come on, how many of y'all believe that same lie? If he could or she could just drink moderately, it would be fine. Yeah, so you went to these meetings kind of, you did not go on your own will. You went because you had to?
Yeah, I went because it was part of the agreement. Yeah. So, you know, we're sitting in these meetings and and understand, I had been to a couple of Al-Anons, and I had been to a couple of AA meetings with my at the time fiance, and I kind of understood them, but I really didn't understand them. You know, I knew it was kind of everybody else's thing, but not mine. So when we started going, I was annoyed. But as I started listening, it started to resonate with me because there were other moms in there who were kind of saying the same thing, how they felt. So I was still angry, and I looked around, and I was like, yeah, but they don't really get it. My story is different. Okay?
It's unique.
So I decided that I was going to share one night, the first time I shared, and I was going to wow them with my story. I was going to tell them all kinds of stuff, and they were going to be like, oh, okay, you have a right to be as angry as you are. So I tell them the story, and I cry, I ugly cry. I'm breathing heavily. And at the end of this meeting, they all come up to me, all of them, every single mom, and they get in this circle, and they start hugging me. and telling me they love me. And I'm like, get off of me. Don't touch me. I don't need your pity. I'm fine. I am completely fine. It's him who has the problem. But you know, what I found was that I could not love myself. I had a deep amount of shame and guilt because even though I told myself it was not my problem, I knew better. I just didn't want to admit it. And because of that, I did have this deep-rooted shame and hatred for myself. I felt like I wasn't a good mom, but that's not something that you want to say out loud. It's not even something you want to admit to yourself, because at the end of the day, your child is they're an extension of you. You raised them, so I had to have a hand in the way he came out. So these moms, they offered me the love and the compassion that I couldn't even give myself. And that was very powerful for me. So I kept coming back.
As we say, keep coming back. I'm so glad you mentioned that, because it's why, like, earlier during celebrations, when Chris mentioned that he got to have a conversation with his 5-year-old daughter yesterday, I know in some situations that's shame-based. Like, well, Chris, why haven't you talked to your 5-year-old daughter? Mm-hmm. Well, let me tell you about my alcoholism. But the joy that comes with getting our lives back when we do the work, there's so much joy and celebration in that, and it comes with some of the most moving moments I've been in meetings are like when I hear moms tell their stories, and it's usually moms, not always, but moms tell their stories of getting their kids back and the things they did in active addiction. So thank you for sharing that with us. And Brooke, so tell us, what's it been like? So you consider yourself, I think, like 4 years into recovery, into this journey of doing the interior work. And what's it like now dealing with your having a son as an addict and you being the mom? What's that like?
You know, my son, he goes back and forth. Some days are great. Sometimes he's sober for 4 days. And sometimes he is missing on the street for weeks, maybe even a month. So it's very up and down. It's a roller coaster. Doing the inner work was so important because once I realized that, you know, look, this problem, that was his problem, it became more my problem than his. I would obsess over him. I would wake up thinking about him. I would go all day thinking about him. I would come up with reasons to call him, to message him. I would check his bank accounts. I was obsessed, and my behavior was unhealthy, and it was toxic because when I did find him, it was full of screaming and cussing and threats and belittling him. And then I would cry, and I'd have these grandiose reactions, and it wasn't even about him anymore. It was about me. So when I leaned into those reactions and those feelings, what I realized was that, you know, I had a disease too. I was addicted to my son. I was addicted to fixing him. I was addicted to making it better. And I did not do that. I made it worse, as a matter of fact. So in doing all this work, I learned that less is better, right? Like, you know, I can't control it. I can't do anything. All I can do is walk beside him in this and be there to support him, because every single time that I behaved in a certain way, a negative way, I then added more guilt to the guilt that was already there for me or in me. And then I hated myself even more. And I got so tired of carrying that guilt and that blame. So the inner work was pivotal. You know, we contribute as loved ones. So there comes a point when you have to decide, are you going to contribute to their sobriety or are you going to contribute to their use? And, you know, what I've learned is that my son, he has so much shame and anger and hate for himself, he doesn't need anymore. I certainly don't need to give it to him, but I did for a very long time. So when I started to learn the tools that I needed and I started to implement them and I started changing my reactions and my behaviors, there came a lot of love and compassion because I didn't have any more guilt. Because see, when all you do is clean up after somebody, you just build resentment and anger. And it's very hard to love and show them compassion because look, my life would be just fine if I wasn't having to clean up after him all the time. So the love and compassion was out the door. So when I stopped cleaning up after him, when I stopped making excuses for him, and when I stopped trying to fix him, I was able to release that guilt, and I was able to, again, walk alongside him. And I was able to feel good about myself because I wasn't behaving in these toxic ways anymore. And when I found love for and compassion for myself, and compassion for myself for what I had been through, right? That's the thing. I learned how to give myself grace. And then I was able to then give that to him. And that was not easy. Again, 4 years of practicing this, and I'm still practicing, and I always will, because I still cry, I still worry, and that's never going to change. He's my baby. But I'm getting better at it. I don't, lay in bed for days at a time anymore. I don't go looking in the streets for him anymore. And I feel good about that.
Yeah, and you said you have more peace now than you've ever had before.
I do.
Brooke, I want you to just take a moment and speak to our loved ones. So we're a community made up of addicts, loved ones of addicts, and spiritual refugees. So the loved ones in the room and the loved ones who are tuning in tonight or that will watch the replay later this week. I know there's so many people who they have the exact attitude you had, and I had the same one as in the other category. But it's that, man, people aren't going to understand. My story is too complex. My story is really unique. They're just not going to get it. And so they try to walk this journey alone, staying in the addiction to the addict, staying in the same old cycles. So to the one who's thinking, man, maybe I should take Brooke's suggestion and give it a try. Maybe I should be part of some support group and hear of other people's experiences. What do you say to that person who's like teeter-tottering with that idea?
What I would say is, look, it is our problem. Our hearts, our minds, our lives are affected by this. No matter how much we want to pretend like it's not, it is. And if you have it in you and you're feeling this way, we've got to look at ourselves. We've got to look at our own actions, and we've got to do something about it. Right?
See, feel, act.
Exactly. Because without that, nothing changes. And if nothing changes, then nothing changes. There is a great metaphor in this book that I read, and it talks about, when our children are young, we're teaching them to ride their bikes. And, we're holding on to their handlebars, and they're holding on to their handlebars, and we're running alongside them while they're pedaling. And at some point, we've got to let them go, and we've got to let them gain their balance, and they might fall, and they might hit their head on the cement, but we have to let go, or they're never going to learn how to ride their bikes. And it's the same thing for our loved ones. If we keep bailing them out, if we keep enabling them and doing all the wrong things, they're not going to suffer the natural consequences, and that's what life is about. And it's so hard to watch the person you love hurt and to fall on that cement. But we've got to let that go, and we've got to let them go, and we've got to feel good about doing it. And one of the things that I wasn't able to do is I wasn't able to cut my son off. So I learned that through craft that I don't have to cut him off. There are ways that I can love him, show him compassion, yet still keep my boundaries. And ever since I've done that, our relationship is beautiful. I mean, he allowed me to come here, bring him here last night to one of the AA meetings. And he told me, Mom, I'm not getting sober. And I was like, okay. But he still came with me. And that's the give and take of it all, right? It doesn't have to be all or nothing. Sometimes that doesn't work for everybody. And I think that that's okay. And we have to allow it to be okay. And we have to be okay with that and learn to give us grace, ourselves grace, and them grace.
Beautifully said. Brooke, are you going to stick around after the service
Yeah,
a little bit?
I'll be around.
So Brooke is part of this this comrade group sitting in the middle of the craft program. Brooke and Heather and Angelica. So if you want to talk to any three of those to inquire more about the family programs that will be offered here, talk to them. They clearly have some wisdom and experience around these issues. So, Brooke Donahue, thank you for being with us tonight. Thank you for sharing with us and breaking the silence of addiction from your perspective. So,
Thank you so
thank you so much. All right. All right, y'all, the way we close down this Saturday night services by, like I said at the beginning, sharing our heartaches together, the burdens that you're carrying, to be reminded that you don't carry these burdens, these heartaches alone, that you have a community of people here. We have this fundamental belief that God always hears the cries of the broken. God says, you are never alone. I will never abandon you. So when we lift these things up, God joins with us. So it's an opportunity to practice vulnerability. It's an opportunity to practice the letting people in, letting God in. So take 3 minutes. And again, if you're online, YouTube, Facebook, drop in the comments. We want to be community together with you in the online way. And if you're here in person, just raise up your hand and Kira will bring you a microphone. So let's take 3 minutes, y'all.
Prayers for my sister who is recovering from 2 broken ribs. My dear friend Stan Giels, the previous owner of Stella's, he's fighting a battle with pancreatic cancer and all that goes with it. And my sister's second child died a couple months ago from drug abuse. It's Bill and his brother died within 2 years of each other because of drugs. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that with us, Mike. Prayers for you and the family.
My best friend just overdosed and died 2 days ago. It's my only friend. It's really hard, so just want to share that and ask for prayer.
What was his name?
Kalen Ristad.
Kalen, what's your name?
Me?
Yeah.
My name's Dylan.
Dylan, I'm glad you're here, dude. Thanks for sharing that with us. Sorry for your loss.
Derek, I know she probably wouldn't want me to say anything, but I know the power of prayer, so prayers for Hallie, who's part of this community. She just found out recently that she's got stage 3 kidney disease, and it's got treatment starting next week. And then on top of that, I want prayers for my brother and my dad. My dad is now on the streets again in his car doing fentanyl, and my brothers are struggling also. So it's just a lot.
Derek, thank you for sharing that with us, dude. Hallie, prayers for you if you're watching. Prayers for Derek's brother and father. Glad you're here, dude. Lifting you up, bro.
My name's Monty. I know Kalen. I went to the program with him. I'm a graduate of Stout Street. Dylan, it's good to see you. We have lost so many in the last 4 years I've been through Stout Street since I completed. It's part of me is mad. Part of me is very sad, but this addiction, it kills us. So I don't know what to do.
Thanks, Monty. Yeah, last year, 107,633 people died of a drug overdose. And the battle is not over, as we know. Ten seconds if anyone wants to lift something up.
I'm Dara. Today would have been my friend Ryan Vickery's 33rd birthday. We lost him 3 years ago to fentanyl. So just lifting up his family.
Yeah, thinking of his family on that 3-year anniversary. Thank you for that, Dara. Okay, Kira, are you joining me up here? Yeah, that'd be great if you joined me up here. You love it. She's been... She's preaching next week, by the way. Just kidding, just kidding. Oh, you got to stand on that side. I don't know why, it's just a thing. So if you take the first one, then I'll take the next one, and this is our way to join with the online community.
Jackie Goodwin. I'd like to pray for my friend who was diagnosed with breast cancer and started chemo this week. Yes, Jackie, we will pray for your friend.
Yeah, definitely. Glad you're here, Jackie. Ricky Salazar from down in Texas. I don't know why I got to say that every time I say his name, but he does live in Texas. I was in a dark place the other night, and a relapse was knocking on my door. It was the hardest urge I've had in 3 years. Luckily, I made it through the night, and I'm glad to be watching. Love y'all. Ricky, thank you for your honesty, and that stuff does creep in. So, dude, glad you're connected. Glad you're staying connected, and grateful for the work you're doing and lifting you up, brother. Glad you're here. Thank you for that.
John Wagner would like to lift up all in this community. Thank you all. Thank you, John. Yes, we will lift everyone up.
Thank you, John. I'm glad you're tuning in tonight. John was with us in the early days here, back in the backyard early days. So it's good that you're good to have you with us tonight, John, online. Kira, thank you for being up here on a stage where you are so comfortable and you just love it so much. I mean, it just flows out of her bones. All right, y'all. You might have noticed a wagon out there. And if you're wondering what time we get over, we're supposed to be over by 8:15. We'll end a couple minutes early tonight. How's that? If you're wondering why there's a wagon out there, I should tell you the wagon is the central image of this community, and that actually comes from somewhere. There's a wagon, a big baptismal wagon. There's a wagon actually tattooed on my neck. When we started in our backyard 4 years ago, a wagon was sitting up against our tree. It's a central image. And the story behind that is when I was at the LA Rescue Mission, one of the largest rescue missions in the country, the executive director was giving us a tour, and we went up to the top floor, and on the top floor was all their pictures of their memorabilia, all their history, and one of the central pictures was this big picture of a black and white wagon. And I said, dude, what's the story with the wagon? He said, you don't know about the wagon? And I said, no, you should tell me. So he told me the story of the wagon. He said, that's how this rescue mission got started. Back in the late 1800s, this wagon would travel into the inner city, to the roughest parts of the city, and they would distribute things like clothes, Bible, food, whatever, all the basic necessities. And then at the end of the night, they would welcome anyone who wanted to get on the wagon and go back to a place of recovery. Interesting, isn't it? What happens when you get a bunch of drunk people on a wagon? Some people fall off the wagon, which was just, for me, hearing that, mind-blowing. That's where that came from. And so, but what was more stunning to me was what he told me this wagon did when that happened. When the drunk ones would fall off, this wagon would stop, and the sober ones would jump off and help the intoxicated ones back on, because they knew where they were headed, a place of recovery. It's why we don't do shame. It's why we're all in this together. It's why we're the wagon together. And I should tell you all that one of the ways we are the wagon together is one of the ways we exist. A primary way we keep existing in the community is through your generous giving. So I invite you to give generously this evening. There's a giving box here, and there's one just outside these doors. They have signs in them that say giving. And truly, it's how we keep the doors open. It's how we pay the bills. And so your giving makes a difference. And I know that for many of you, it's a spiritual practice. It's a sacrifice you've made in your life. And I just want to say thank you. We are deeply aware of that. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And there's 3 ways to give online if you feel so inclined. There is the free app. It's actually free to download. It's called Free Spiritual Community. And you can give online there once or weekly, monthly, or just a one-time donation, whatever you feel led to do. Or you can go to the website, freespiritualcommunity.com/give, and you can do the same thing there. Safe, simple, secure. And the last way is to simply text the number on your screen. I know it comes up fast, so later on you can go watch it and hit the pause button if you want, or ask me for the number. I'll give it to you. But truly, your generous giving keeps the mission of breaking the silence of addiction thriving in the world. So thank you all for being a part of that. It's been a good night. For a holiday weekend, it's been a good night to be here sober and above ground with you all here. So let's go out with a prayer. I invite you to take a big, deep breath. Last year, I told my son when he was getting ready to go to school and he was scared of getting bullied, I said, buddy, remember, God is always with you. I said, put your hand up to your mouth and breathe. And when you feel that breath hit your hand, be reminded that God is as close to you as you're breathing. Because God is in your breath. God is in you. It's like, can God get any closer? So just take a moment and be aware of your breathing. And let's go out with the serenity prayer. Let's go out with the St. Francis prayer. If you don't know it, it'll be on your screen. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. O divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. Amen. My free brothers and sisters, this week, may you remember splagnizomai, to be filled with compassion from the innards, from the guts. And because of that, may you experience all kinds of grace and peace. And we will see you next week. Peace.